Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS fades and sleepers for this week's Valero Texas Open. Gonna take a look at some of the ownership trends heading into lock here on Wednesday and give you a few players that you might want to consider as sleeper picks this week, guys that maybe aren't getting enough attention in this GPP contest. And then on the flip side, of course, those fades, which are going to be players that I think are being oversteamed heading up until lock. So a lot to touch on. Let's go ahead and get this thing rocking.
We'll begin this with a look at our fades, but before we go player by player, I think it's important to note a few of the trends with the weather, which I touched on slightly there with the value plays video, but as of right now, I've heard a lot of the industry, and myself included, especially earlier yesterday, thought that the AM-PM stack was going to 100% be the way to go. It looked like the winds were going to be slightly higher Thursday afternoon, also for Friday morning, but a little bit of a wrench has been thrown into things with the possibility of thunderstorms tomorrow. There on Friday, there's a slight chance of thunderstorms, but more prominently, sometime between like 8, 9 a.m. Eastern time and something close to like 1, 2 p.m., there's supposed to be at least 1, 2 thunderstorm packets that end up coming through there. So you're looking at a likely delay and a cut line that's not going to be decided to at the earliest Saturday morning, if not closer to midday on Saturday. So when you're looking at some of the weather edges, you have to consider that possibility. Try and figure out some of the timing, and based on what I'm looking at, I think that the edge might be ever so slightly towards that AM PM wave, because if they end up playing on Saturday, it's calling for the lowest winds of the entire weekend there on Saturday morning. But unfortunately, that's more than a few days out at this point, right? Forecasts aren't going to be very accurate. And for all we know, there could be a windstorm or another storm that comes through before then, which throws everything even further offline. So if you're looking for a weather edge here, I do think that there might be a slight advantage to getting to the AM-PM stack, but not nearly what we see with this ownership. So if you were at my week in review stream a few weeks ago, we touched on it over the last month or so on that stream. We've been trying to, kind of keep track of these weather advantages and how they're owned in GPPs. And what we've seen, if you've come to some of those live streams, is that there's a 3 to sometimes 5, 6% bump for some of those players in that perceived wave advantage. In this week, because there's not a ton of guys in the AM-PM wave, you have what? Davis Riley, Matt Kuchar, then you gotta go the whole way down to like a Matt Wallace, Thomas Dietrich, Shank, Hogard, Rye, Brendan Todd, also Andrew Putnam down here. They're all AM wave golfers, but everyone else, right, is PM wave, and especially up here in the 10 and 9K range. So what this is going to do is going to put a lot of people onto Davis Riley, a lot of people onto a Matt Kuchar. Down here in the 8K range, you're going to have just a 5, 6% increase in ownership on all of these players, right? Wallace, Dietrich, Shank, Hogard, who were all already getting a pretty decent amount of ownership to begin with, are now some of the chalkiest plays on the slate. So that's why a Davis Riley, right? A Matt Wallace and a Nikolai Hogard, who are all playing pretty decent golf, right? Wallace won at the Corrales Punta Cana. He had Hogard who finished up there in the top 3. The reason why I'm fading them is all due to weather concerns, right? They're all playing in that quote-unquote good wave, and though they're solid plays this week, they shouldn't be twice as owned as the guys around them, right? They're nearly identical plays. I think you're looking at probably like a half a stroke advantage at the most between the two waves out there, at least based on what I'm looking at right now, which does not substantiate, right, those guys being mega chalk, right, compared to some of the guys around them. So we'll go player by player. I guess first off with Davis Riley, I wanted to get there, right, when he was going to be like 13, 14% owned, but now I have him at 19.2%, which is ever so slightly lower owned than somebody like a Siwoo Kim, and believe it or not, higher owned than guys like a Corey Connors. So he's become one of the highest owned players on the slate. I mean, not even that much lower owned than like a Ricky Fowler or even a Terrell Hatton out there, who I would prefer even out of that quote unquote bad wave. So that's the direction that I'm going. I know he's a little bit cheaper, of course, right? We're looking at a $9,500 golfer, but Siwoo Kim's that same kind of player, and I'd rather take him out of the quote-unquote bad wave over a chalky Davis Riley. I mean, Siwoo Kim has the course history, the form, the winning pedigree this year, unlike a Davis Riley. So I think a lot of things pushing me in that direction, and that half a stroke advantage just isn't enough for me to get there, right? It's half a stroke over a 4-round event, right, where you're playing 72 holes. Not all that much, at least for these top end options in the grand scheme of things. But if you're talking about players in that 7K range, especially any 6K options, I love taking the AM PM stack, right? That's where it makes a much larger difference. Where I'm just trying to take my guys up top, right? They can, especially an elite tier player like these 10 and 9K options, can make up for that half a stroke rather easily. So Davis Riley is going to be a fade for me at 19.2%. I was hoping it'd be closer to 12, 13%, but unfortunately because of this weather edge, that's something to worry about. Giving you a little side note on Matt Kuchar. He's not one of the highest owned players on the slate. I think as of my last run, he was like number 2 or 3 when it comes to total ownership. If that's going to be the case, he may actually become a fade. So stay tuned for that on the live stream later on, which again, to remind you guys, that'll be at 7 p.m. Eastern time tonight. Next up, we've got Matt Wallace, winner from last week, where you might expect him to come out a little bit flat. It's more about the ownership, though. He's 15.8%, and I think a great little comparison there would be to Seabass, right? Who's the better player. I know he's in the quote-unquote worst wave right there at the PM stack, but he's half his own. Dude, you can't tell me that he's half as likely to succeed as Matt Wallace. So just wanted to point that out with good old Matt Wallace. Hats off to you for winning last week at Corrales, but I don't think you should be chalk here in the 8K range. I think he's appropriately priced. Should probably be like 8-9% owned. I think that would be adequate for Matt Wallace, but because of that weather edge, once again, right, he's one of the few guys you can take here in the 8K range, combine him with one of those guys in the 9K and build that kind of lineup. You have Nico Hogard there. He's $8,000. A lot of people are going to get there, right? He had another top performance at the Corrales. And it's not like I hate the play here, but he's even higher owned than like Adam Schenk, right? Who nearly won the Valspar, which that is a lot more impressive than nearly winning over there at Corrales, right? Rye, right, has higher ownership than Rye. Brendan Todd, who has great form and course history around TPC San Antonio. All of these guys that are getting steamed up in the 8 and 9K range, I'm going to stay clear of. And that includes Matt Kuchar, right, who I talked up as a core player the other day. If that ownership is going to be 20% plus, I am not going to be there. So just want to point that out to everybody out there from the strategy perspective. On the other hand, there are guys being steamed down because of this, and guys that I want to take advantage of now that I wasn't on before. And all 3 of these players can be classified as that, as guys that I wasn't on before, but I saw the ownership, I see the opportunity, and now I want to pounce on them. So that's why I'm calling them sleeper plays. You've got Hideki Matsuyama at 10,500. He's 8.8% projected owned, and that might even be on the high side. I see a few projections out there projecting him for closer to like 6, maybe 7% ownership. It's all really trivial at that point because he's essentially unowned compared to everyone else up top, right? He's 2, sometimes even 3 times lower owned than some of his peers. But you got to like about it is, of course, the upside. I mean, I know at the WGC, right, withdrew, but that was after going out there and getting a win against a few tough opponents, really hanging in there his first 2 matches. They say it was injury concerned. Maybe he just knew that he wasn't going to advance out of group play and wanted to move on. Either way, though, he had a top 5 finish just the week before that, right? Players Championship, I should say 2 weeks before that at the Players Championship, and hit the ball beautifully. Gained across all 4 stat categories. Looked like vintage Hideki Matsuyama, and this is the kind of golf course that fits his game, and particularly with some of the weather things that we're considering at this point. I know he's on the good wave, but they've gotten a lot of rain over the last 2 days. They're going to get rain there on Thursday, and a soft course where you can throw darts out there, be aggressive, plays directly into what he likes to do, right? He likes to go out there, throw darts, throw long iron darts like he's more than capable of, and play extremely aggressive golf. So 8.8%, he obviously peaked here a few years ago at the same time of year when he went out there and won the Masters. Maybe he'll peak here at Valero this time around rather than over there at Augusta National. Next up, we got Ryan Fox. Another single-digit owned player that I'm getting to at just $9,000. He's only 6.8%, and the narrative around Ryan Fox is that he's a great player, right? I've heard a lot of touts out there this week, admit that at the very least. And then they talk about his driving accuracy. Well, if you look at his results on the DP World Tour, no matter what golf course you put this guy on, what style of golf course, and just, for the record, a lot of those DP World Tour courses are tight off the tee. You have to have that accuracy. He dominates over there. And I've always called them the minor league tour. Like they're like the AAA baseball organization compared to the PGA Tour quality when it comes to field, all that sort of fun stuff, just quality of golf course. But if you're going to be talking about a guy that can dominate regardless of golf course over there, I don't know if we just have to fade him because we think this is a tough course off the tee for him, right? Maybe he hits more 3-woods. Maybe he's just a little bit more accurate this week than most. He posts top 3, top 2 finishes over their DP World Tour on courses with water and play on 12 plus holes. But there's a ton of wind over there. It's really easy to hit the ball offline when conditions are going to be as blustery as they are over there in Europe. So Ryan Fox, I think, just from the talent level perspective, everyone knows that he's a top 5 player in this field. Like when it comes to talent level, like he's better than a Davis Riley. He's probably up there with like Taylor Montgomery, Siwoo Kim. He's like on that kind of level when it comes to talent level. I think most people would agree with that statement. I don't think that's crazy to say, but they won't play him because of the driving accuracy. I say screw the driving accuracy, right? I'm a huge metrics guy. I understand that, right? But sometimes guys are just damn good at golf and can make up for it, right? If you look at the DP World Tour record, I know it's weaker fields. He's been able to do that. So he's a player that I'm getting to. I understand the risk involved, right, with his off the tee play, but I also know the upside. If he keeps himself in play with that 320-yard carry, it's going to be devastating at a soft golf course like this. I mean, he'll have wedge into almost every hole, kind of like Hideki. Like he's extremely aggressive, and I think because of some of the rain that they had, that only helps his case out there. So I'll definitely be getting there. Although it is a little bit risky, I will admit that, right? For all the guys that are a little bit worried about it. But then we have Christian Mazane, who hasn't been playing all that well off the tee of late. That's been a little bit of an issue for me. But the approach play and overall the putting has kind of been what we're used to with him, right? He's a top-notch putter. You take a look at the last 12 rounds, you'll see why he has been a little bit inconsistent. It's the off the tee play, right? Losing almost close to half a stroke per round, but the approach play, the putting, has been his bread and butter. That's what we know Christian for. And now we get him at a golf course that off the tee play isn't emphasized nearly as much as many courses. And I think the fact that it's soft probably doesn't help Christian because he's not one of the longer players on tour. But in general, off the tee play is de-emphasized around TPC San Antonio. I mean, look at some of the champions, right? It's guys that are approach play specialists. A lot of guys that aren't long off the tee, like they're not bombers by any means. And of course Christian, right, he's not a bomber. He's not short off the tee, but he's certainly not a bomber. So I think if there's a course where he can go up there, get you that top 5, top 10 finish, it's this sort of track. You look at the event history, he hasn't played here all that often. In fact, he hasn't played here at all. The recent form is why the ownership's low, right? T13, I think a lot of people are forgetting about that, right? The Players Championship. That's a hard golf course off the tee, and he made it work there, right? Missed cut, T42, I guess that was a Honda Classic. Similar kind of golf course, still making the cuts, right? Difficult off the tee tracks. I mean, if he can spike off the tee, which is asking a lot, right, from Seabass, that's clearly his weakness, no matter what. Like, you look at his stat profile, he's almost always going to be losing off the tee. But by spike, I mean maybe spike to right around a neutral off the tee over the week, and you could be getting that top-end finish from a Seabass. Alrighty guys, that is all I've got for this week's fades and sleepers. Before you hopping out of here, smash that like button, but also go ahead, comment down below who you're fading this week, and of course, maybe one of those low-owned sleeper plays that you're getting to that you think might be a little bit outside the box. But either way, I appreciate all the support here on the channel, you guys stopping by, consuming the content. We'll be doing our weekly live stream tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern, so make sure to stop on by with any of your questions. We'll touch on the weather, whether anything is changing on that end, any things to talk, consider with the stacking portion. We'll talk strategy, chalk, we'll go through cash plays, the prop side, all that sort of fun stuff. So set a reminder, make sure to stop on by for that, and let's get this cash this week. There's a link to the community contest down below, so if you're looking to get a part, become a part of that, make sure to click that. It fills rather quickly, so make sure to reserve your spot before it fills. And that way you can get your lineup reviewed on our weekend review stream, which I did touch on slightly there during the video, but of course on there we touched on a lot of the meta, kind of what's going on in terms of ownership trends, but also review all of your lineups in the community contest. So make sure to check that on out. But until next time guys, best of luck with all of those lineups. Again, I appreciate all the support on the channel, and I'll see you guys tonight for the live stream.